Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin, coming to you here from the gun store in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. Because we got preempted by a Dodgers game a couple of weeks ago, some of you have noticed now we've moved us to Thursdays. We put it on all the advertising, but there's still people calling me literally every 5 minutes going, how come your show wasn't on? Thursday. If you're hearing this, you know that. It's the people that haven't heard that, so would you forward that message to everybody else, please? Thank you. And we're on YouTube, of course, new shows at the same time on Thursdays from 5 to 6. Tonight's guest is my favorite Fed, firearms instructor Lenny Davis, sitting here to my left. Lenny, in case there's someone in the free world who doesn't know who you are, would you, or is there anybody there?
I don't know that there is anybody. Anyway, for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I'm Lenny Davis. I'm a retired special agent with U.S. Customs and Department of Homeland Security. And I spent the last 8 years working for the State Department as a subject matter expert in their Global Anti-Terrorism Assistance Program. So I've been going all over the world teaching anti-terrorism. And now I've taken a job here in Las Vegas, and I am the Director of Training Facilities and Investigation for Textratics International.
And there we are. You will find him a very knowledgeable individual on all of this stuff, especially when we start talking about terrorism. And as a firearms instructor, he is one of the best. We've worked together a couple times. And,
a couple of different decades. Actually a couple of centuries too. So I'm not that old. He is though. But.
If you have a question or comment, you can send an email to Fired Up with Bob Irwin, right? Their email bob@firedupmail.com. We answer all of the emails that come in. If you want to ask something of Lenny or one of our attorneys that's on, just address it to them, but send it to that same address and I will forward it to them. We do answer all the inquiries, and when we get something that we get a lot of questions about, we'll address it on the show, because that will tell us that a lot of people care about this or that issue. This show is about guns, related politics to that, which we have a lot of right now, and self-defense issues. There are several hundred defensive cases of firearms use in the United States every week. Usually they're not covered by the mainstream media because it makes guns look good, generally. So we'd like to highlight a few of those at the beginning of each show to talk about what happened, and not to deride the individual involved. We may point out, even in where very good shootings, it could have been a little better if we thought about this or thought about that. So listeners that own guns can get an education if they were in that type of situation, what the options were. And sometimes people miss options because of the panic that sets in these situations. So we're going to start out with a case from WCPO TV9 in Cincinnati, in the suburb of North College Hill on the 7th. Police say one man shot another during a fight Saturday morning. The police responded to the 6500 block of Betts Avenue about 11:45 a.m., right midday, to report if a person had been shot. The woman who called 911 said she heard the man shout, "If you're on my property, I have a right to defend myself." Arriving officers found the resident, a concealed carry weapon permit holder. He told police that a male and two females had assaulted him, and he'd fired his weapon at the male that was the protagonist after he was knocked to the ground. The altercation continued for a bit. He was afraid the other man may have a weapon, it said, so he fired around at him. The shooting was apparently driven by the shooter, was a victim, was driven by the women to Mercy Health West Hospital, then transferred to a larger hospital, University of Cincinnati. His injuries did not appear life-threatening. The shooter was also reportedly transported to a hospital briefly, and his injuries were not life-threatening, apparently from being knocked to the ground. This particular shooting was all over a lot of media, and as I tell everybody constantly, I always get 2 or 3 or 4 opinions. And the actual story that I found in the local paper was the only one that mentioned this little detail. Witnesses said the two men are neighbors and they know each other. This is all over the blogs as a random attack. It was not. A neighbor expressed concern about the gunfire, saying, what if they had missed and hit one of our kids? Our kids play all hours of the day, and it's concerned we're a block away and people are getting shot. No arrests have been made, and the investigation is ongoing. One would question here, the guy saying, if you're on my property, I have a right to defend myself. He has a concealed carry permit. I would hope he didn't learn that in his carry permit class, that if someone's on your property, you can shoot them. I'm not dramatically familiar with Ohio law, and maybe somebody can send me an email and correct me on that. But that makes no sense from as I understand the law at all. The rule we have is if you're in danger of death or serious bodily injury, apparently the shooter was attacked, and probably that could be avoided if his confrontation started by staying in the house and calling 911. He may be entirely right in the self-defense issue. I just question his reasoning on the law there.
Well, and the one thing, this is a great thing for something that we teach in all the CCW classes, is when you call 911, you're making a recorded statement. The police department can use that for or against you. And in this case, I have a right to defend myself. To me, that's not, hey, get away from me, get back. It doesn't seem to me that it could be interpreted, and I wasn't there, so I don't know.
Right.
But it could be very easily interpreted that, he was not necessarily in as grave a danger as he was if he had
time to think out the legal scenario.
Yeah, I'm telling you, we're going to give you gun carrying legal 101 here. So just remember that, folks. I mean, when you make a call to 911, you're making a statement to the police.
And if you calmly say, yes, ma'am, I'm calling you 911 because I am in great fear of my body being harmed or possibly being killed. So I'm legally telling you that I'm in fear of my life. And therefore, under Dwayne versus Jones, that's not what people say to 911 when they're really in fear of being shot or stabbed. Anyway, questions or comments, you can go to bob@firedupmail.com. Please friend us on Facebook. If you look up our Facebook page, Fired Up with Bob Irwin. And the gun store does teach concealed carry permit classes here every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Saturday. You can find the classes on our website. Sign up at thegunstorelasvegas.com. No, this is a Texas case. I always preempt Texas cases because the rules are different. And this one is from Humble, Texas, which just seemed like a wonderful place to live. Yep. I wonder if it says Humble Police on there. So anyway, it could, who knows?
Humble SWAT, I could just
ABC TV, KTRK in Humble, Texas, said this week, 5/8 on the 8th. Customer took matters into his own hands last night when he saw his friend's restaurant being robbed. Officers report a man was going through the Beijing Walk drive-through off Ad9 Westfield near FM 1960 road. We can skip all that. He's in the drive-through of a Chinese drive-through at around 9 p.m. He saw, through the window apparently, saw two men robbing the restaurant. The guy then went across the street, got his gun, and waited for the suspects to leave. As they left, he started firing shots at the suspects across 4 lanes of traffic. Deputies did not know if the suspects were hit as they fled the scene. I think I would have too. And they're looking for possibly a Nissan and are still at large. Maybe if describing the car getting the plate would have been a better idea than shooting across 4 lanes. I can't say that with a straight face. And of course, another customer's car was hit by one of the rounds. Deputies said the customer will likely not face charges because he had a concealed handgun license. That's a direct quote also. I don't know that even in Texas, you can shoot across 4 lanes of traffic, and if you have a CCW, it's okay.
I've read this, and I'm shocked to say the least.
That's an exact quote.
I mean, I look at this, and yeah, trust me, everybody gets mad, gets angry, but you know, if they're getting robbed, you come across, you take the time to go across the street to get your gun. Where in the process maybe did you think about dialing 911? And then you do something that's absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, insane, firing a weapon across 4 lanes of traffic on a busy street.
And this is a commercial boulevard with obviously businesses on it, and 4 lanes total, 2 going each way. And what could possibly go wrong when you do that?
You're responsible, as all responsible gun owners know, you're responsible for every round you fire. And if you happen to fire that round at that bad guy, and suddenly a little old lady drives her car right in front of your round, you've just committed involuntary or voluntary manslaughter and possibly second-degree murder, depending on the state.
About anywhere else in Texas, it would be second-degree murder, because this is would clearly be considered a totally reckless act in every jurisdiction. And I think it will be here. I don't think the deputy was right in saying he'll not face charges. It's obviously going to go up to their local district attorney for a review, and somebody, maybe the guy whose car got hit, is going to. Well, I have a question about that.
Yeah, and folks, I'm going to tell you, if you don't have any experience in it other than TVs and the movies, cars are incredibly hard to shoot through. You got a lot of stuff that will deflect rounds, and at the end of the day, you will end up not necessarily hitting what you need to hit, and you certainly won't stop a vehicle by shooting at it. You would nearly have to hit it with a 50 caliber round, and even then, I'm not sure, depending on where you hit it, if it would actually stop the.
You have to hit the engine block or something to block the thing up.
So it's just a bad idea to ever shoot a vehicle.
On the bright side of shooting at cars, unlike the movies, when you shoot a car with a pistol, it does not explode.
Yeah. Not unless that's not a bright side.
Questions or comments, Bob at Fired Up Mail? We do teach some basic and advanced handgun classes that cover some tactics that might be appropriate. You can find those on our website too for signups to those. WKYT TV 27, Lexington, Kentucky. Police are investigating Tuesday after finding a man in the front yard of a home on Kildare Court just before 7 a.m. Tuesday, a couple days ago. He'd been shot multiple times. The Lexington police spokesman said the shooting was an isolated incident involving domestic violence. Investigators say the man in the front yard was shot by his former girlfriend in self-defense. Reporters noted that several residents on the street said this wasn't the first time the police had been to the home. The individual who's dead on the front yard, who's 40, was charged with, I'm not dead, he's wounded, I'm sorry. He's 40 years old, charged with 4th-degree assault, domestic violence, violating a domestic violence order. He was taken to University of Kentucky Hospital, where police say he was conscious but in serious condition. When I was reading this on the newspaper's website, one of the readers had commented, you can write in and put comments on things. And I liked his comments, so I just put the whole thing in here. Instead of issuing a protective order, they need to start issuing Smith & Wessons. If someone is intent on harming someone else, a piece of paper is not going to stop them. I am only glad she had one and knew how to use it, the gun. And the last line of his story was the best. Take his R straight to jail from the hospital. Hope he gets sepsis. That's part of the problem, and it's part of the solution here. Protective orders obviously don't work to keep people physically from harming you. But they are great evidence if you're in a questionable shooting where the other side's going to say, I don't know, this was a complete blindsided me. I never did anything wrong. If there's a protective order issued ordering this guy, which there was, not to come near this woman, that is huge evidence that so charges won't be brought against her and civil lawsuits won't be brought against her because he's clearly violating the protective order. And again, I'm not saying they protect you, but in a lot of cases, they do deter people from attacking you. They're not body armor, but they help. But they're very good as evidence in court should something like this happen. And now the guy is going to say, I was just walking by the house and she shot me, or whatever he's going to say. The protective order voids all of those defenses. He wasn't supposed to be there, and the police have actually physically told him not to be there. So he loses.
And to add to that, folks, if you're in a situation where you've got a protective order, I know in places like the People's Republic of California, they don't like you to arm yourself and protect yourself because they say you've got a protective order and call the police. Well, the problem is when trouble's seconds away, danger's seconds away, the police are minutes away. It's just a fact of life. And so when you're looking at this kind of situation, we've seen this how many times over the years where you know, woman files a protective order against a spouse or a boyfriend, and he continues to stalk her and he eventually kills her. This is why you need the protective order is great for backup, as Bob said, if you do have to have a shooting or do get in a shooting, but at the end of the day, you've got to protect yourself. The police can't protect you. That's not trying to be a scare tactic or anything. I was a law enforcement officer for 31 years. The police cannot protect you. Simple as that.
They won't be there when the crime happens.
Yeah.
Because the crime doesn't happen if there's a policeman standing there. So, you know, there's going to be a dwell time going through the system. We're running an average here of about 7 minutes for police responses in Las Vegas, depending on Northtown and Henderson and so on. But 7 minutes is literally sometimes your lifetime.
Yeah. And I
have
just
a gun or a good set of track shoes and hold the world record.
You literally have to be your own first responder. So keep that in mind.
We have ladies only shooting and personal safety class. We teach here twice a month, taught by instructor Maggie Mordaunt, who is just an incredible instructor. There was supposed to be one today, which unfortunately she had a family problem that caused her to leave town suddenly. But she'll be back next class. Next one is May 26th. It's a Thursday, and you can sign up at thegunstorelasvegas.com and get into Maggie's class. You will not be sorry you were in it. Amazing class. Here we go with another Texas case. I got two in the same outline. This is click to Houston on the 9th, a couple days ago in Harris County, Texas. A man suspected of breaking into a car was shot and killed Monday by the homeowner. According to investigators, the suspect was breaking into the homeowner's pickup truck just before 5 a.m. The vehicle was parked in front of the owner's house in the 12,100 block of Oak Park Drive. The owner, who was tipped off by his barking dogs, spotted the man inside the truck, called 911, and then went out with his gun. It'd be so nice if that was an hour later. Anyway, detectives said the 54-year-old homeowner and the 27-year-old suspect had an altercation. The homeowner shot the suspect one time, killing him. Investigators say the injured man tried to run away before he collapsed in a ditch near a neighbor's house. Deputies said he was alive when the ambulance arrived, but died before life flight landed. One neighbor said the crime in the neighborhood has gotten worse since Christmas. She said after hearing the break-in and the shooting, she was taking swift action. I'm actually going to buy a gun right now, she said. I'm not wasting time. Something we like to hear and hope she gets some training with it. Again, I have to always say with Texas cases, in Texas, the law allows citizens to recover stolen property or prevent escapes by using lethal force. So what happened here was not illegal for the homeowner to go out there with a gun and end up in a confrontation where he killed the guy. The same rule does not apply to police. Police are sued in federal court and they operate under different sets of rules. So as goofy as this sounds, in Texas, you can shoot a burglar running from your house with your goods or just escaping, but a law enforcement on duty cannot shoot the guy running away from a petty crime like that, because he gets sued in federal court and federal guidelines say no shooting and fleeing felons. Civilians don't get sued in federal court, police officers do. So we have two sets of standards in Texas, one for civilians, which you can pretty much shoot anybody, and one for police, which is you pretty much can't shoot anybody. So when you see stories about Texas, particularly where you see police officers did this or that, and you wonder why they didn't shoot them, because they have a different rule book. Yeah. That theirs is stricter. Clearly, in this case, the guy not going out to confront the bad guy would have saved this resident a lot of time. The investigation, there's possible litigation. It's expensive and time consuming. And honestly, from my perspective, as I've told most listeners, I have worked a lot of shooting cases as an expert witness and had a lot of training from psychologists and psychiatrists and that look into this sort of thing. Unless this particular individual who ended up killing a guy in his truck is a psychopath or a sociopath, he's going to live with it for the rest of his life, second guessing himself as to, why didn't I wait for the police, because somebody died at your hand. That is a very tough thing to live with. You all know stories of police officers who kill somebody absolutely correctly in the line of duty and never go to work again. I'm sure
Darren Wilson, formerly of the Ferguson, Missouri Police Department.
It's
prime case.
It's a tough thing to live with. So legally, this was a good shooting.
In
Psychologically, in Texas. Psychologically, perhaps not. And hopefully the guy can get through it. A lot of people do. And a lot of people, they're never the same again.
And for you folks that live here in the great state of Nevada, if this situation happened to you and you did it exactly as this homeowner did, you would be facing criminal charges.
Absolutely.
And probably second-degree murder. And everybody goes, the guy won't do this again. Yeah, I understand that, but you also don't want to. I mean, even this guy in the state of Texas, he probably is not facing anything criminally, but this 27-year-old very easily could have a family. And even though Texas law says they can do that, they may still put him through a lawsuit, civil lawsuit, and you're going to spend a lot of money with attorneys. You're going to put an attorney's kid through college trying to defend this.
And in Texas, he'll probably win the case, but you have to defend it. And that is the rest of your fortune. And no, your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover it because it only covers, unless you got special riders, only covers accidents. It doesn't cover intentional acts. Mm-hmm. If you shoot somebody on purpose, your policy has a line in it that says, we don't cover it. You did that intentionally. We only cover accidents. So there's a lot of stuff. And I don't know that's all going to happen to this guy. It's just all of those possibilities wouldn't have been avoided if he had just yell at the guy, I'm going to shoot you, but don't actually do it unless you're physically attacked and you're about to die. Again, free concealed carry permit classes, talks about all this stuff every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. Sign up on our website, thegunstorelasvegas.com. Tampa Bay Times on the 10th, a couple days ago, reported in Riverview, which is near Tampa, Florida, a man who tried to rob 3 other men at a convenience store on Tuesday was killed when one of his intended victims fatally shot him. This is a little complex how this actually happened. The attempted robbery took place around noon at Ace Beverage Castle. It's at 9401 US 301 South Highway. I'm going to quit putting those in here. Nobody really cares, do they?
Yeah.
The would-be robber, he's 24 years old, was wearing a bandana and carrying a 9mm handgun, walked up to a man who was standing behind the business and tried to rob the guy. When the intended victim told the robber he had nothing to give, the 24-year-old forced him through the back door of the business into the building. Office of this beverage company, where the business's owners, a father and son, were sitting in the office behind their desks, and here comes a victim being shoved through the door and a guy with a mask and a gun. Surprise. One of the new victims now, the police didn't say father or son, pulled out a gun and shot the robber several times. 911 was called, and arriving paramedics transported the criminal guy to Tampa General Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The owner who fired the shot, as I said, was not identified by the sheriff's office, but he does have a concealed carry permit. The deceased robber had a criminal record that includes convictions for grand theft, burglary, as well as a possible charge of conspiracy to commit murder. That case didn't show in the outline as a conviction, and we couldn't really confirm that. He was maybe only charged with that, and they dropped it. We couldn't find the end of it. Anyway, the case is referred to the Hillsborough County State Attorney's Office to decide whether the shooter should be charged or he acted in self-defense. This sounds, from what's going on here, a pretty good self-defense case. I can't imagine that you're sitting in your office and here comes a victim and a masked robber with a gun come crashing through your door into your office. Hello. Fortunately, the guy had a CCW, probably means he had some serious training. I know in Florida they do require training classes and go over all this stuff. So he practiced, he was prepared when this happened suddenly in front of him, pick up his gun and shoot before anybody got hurt. If the store owner hadn't been armed, who knows?
Could have been a disaster. Of course, this young man, this appears to be his first attempted armed robbery and his last, but it was a liquor store. I don't know a liquor store owner, especially the people that are in the back usually counting the cash, that don't have a gun. Yeah. It's not a really smart place to. Obviously, he was a out of work aerospace guy from NASA, but because he was such a rocket scientist. But no, I mean, this is just one of those things that these guys were very lucky, because we've heard there's countless cases where robbery goes and everybody ends up getting killed, all the innocent customers and everything else. Yeah. So this is thank God this young man or the older gentleman, one of these two, had a handgun and concealed weapons permit and were trained.
Yeah, when I looked at this, and I've worked with store owners in the past where they had attempted robberies, and I'm sure you've done the same thing. You go over and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. You're in the counter in the back of the store here. You got your vision obstructed here. Move that. Get clear view of the doorway. Don't have the windows so they can see you and you can't see them. You go through all this stuff, presuming the robber's coming through the front door. Mm-hmm. In this case, he comes through the back door with a hostage, in effect. Just something I totally never addressed in anybody I've talked to. We address it in homes. If they often kick in your back door. Never saw this. This was pretty slick. Again, questions and comments to Bob at Fired Up Mail. Please friend us on Facebook. If you're planning a corporate event, we do those here at the gun store, machine gun shooting and weddings and all sorts of things. We do those together sometimes. But anyway, you can contact Melissa by email at thegunstorelasvegas.com, and she can set up your groups and weddings and all that goofy stuff that we have. This is a reverse domestic violence. I had to throw one in. In domestic violence cases that we see over and over again are virtually always the male half attacking the female half, beating the female half, whatever. And in the time I worked as a bailiff, we had hundreds and hundreds of domestic violence hearings and TPO hearings and so on. And twice over that 20-year time span, we had cases that were the other way around, that the wife was the aggressor in this. This is KALB TV and the Town Talk reporting on the 11th, which is yesterday, as most of you know, in Grant Parish, Louisiana. A report was made to the Grant Parish Sheriff's Office just after 5 p.m. Of a domestic disturbance in the 100 block of Seals Road. The 34-year-old wife reportedly stabbed her husband in multiple places on various spots of his body. The wounded husband was able to get a gun and shoot his wife several times. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and her husband was airlifted to an Alexandria, Louisiana hospital. Last report, he was still in the hospital with serious stab wounds. The sheriff's office said they had responded to previous domestic-related calls at the couple's home. No charges are expected to be filed against the husbands, according to the Grant Parish Sheriff. The case will be forwarded to the district attorney's office in the parish for review, of course. The Grant Parish Sheriff's Office believes the homicide was an isolated event and do not believe there's any danger to the public. The sad part here is the couple has a 5-month-old infant. The child was not present in the home, however, when the incident took place. As I said in the outset, domestic violence does work both ways. With the prior police responses and a 5-month-old in the mix of this event, this might have been a foreseen event because the police have been there a number of times, but the police are in no position to fix domestic quarrels. I've been out on them. I know when you were in the military cop, you went to lots of them and you can talk to them, but you can't make them get help. Apparently the gentleman was smart enough. 2 things. He had a gun in his house to defend the house, but he had it secure where his wife couldn't get it, or she would not be stabbing him. She would have been shooting him. So apparently she couldn't get it. He managed to fight it away from the knife, get the gun, and defend himself. Points out when we talk about if you have someone in your home who is not mentally capable of being around a gun, somebody who's quick to anger, or they're a drunk, or they have, this situation is obviously way beyond that. If you need the gun to defend yourself, you may need it to defend against your spouse, but you keep the gun for home invaders and so forth too. So you lock it up with the parties that shouldn't have a gun for whatever reason can't get it. You use the same things you use for children. Mm-hmm. He apparently did that. Smart guy. Apparently, it's my best guess is it saved his life. There were no. I mean, he's got a lot of stab wounds. He's in serious but stable condition. And good luck. That's tough. I know, Letty, you've been on domestics too, and you can't. It's not a police thing. You have to get the family involved. Yeah, and I hate telling you get the government involved, but you have to get, if they're this dangerous, you have to get the civil authorities involved that have the tools to force people to get counseling and things like that.
Yeah, I had it around me, and you can't make that person get help. But at some point they have to realize, and hopefully it doesn't escalate to this point. So you try everything you can to get them to get help and keep from doing something like this. It's a tragedy that, this poor 5-month-old kid's never going to have his mother around, but at least he will have a father. So
a little political stuff here, as most of you know from reading the paper. Question 1 on the Nevada ballot for our state here is the universal background checks bill. It will be on the ballot. It will require some changes in how we do background checks. We don't know what those are exactly because the arguments for and against the bill are still being rewritten in the legislature. It's all over the papers currently. Two things that I want everybody to realize. Being a guy who is behind the counter for years doing background checks, it will only affect honest people. It'll give you one more hump of paperwork to do and things and so forth. And to get your name mixed up with somebody else named John Smith, and God knows, records are sealed and you can't discover what your old record 30 years ago says in Connecticut because the court closed down and did it. This is not smooth sailing a lot for people trying to get a background check done.
I remember when I was purchasing a gun from your fine establishment, right after the background check came through, I was on duty still at that point, a federal agent, and Bob called the gun in, and they said because there was another Leonard Davis, although his identifying data was not the same, he was a criminal and couldn't have a gun, so they were reluctant in giving Bob the ability to do that. And
he wasn't a short, chunky, bald guy?
No. And so it was funny because I'll never forget it because Bob goes, look, the guy's a federal agent and he's standing here in my shop wanting to buy a gun. And they said, oh, well, it probably isn't this guy, and gave me the gun. So it's not always, I will never forget that. If the guy's a federal agent, he's standing here in my shop wanting his gun.
We run them for police officers in uniform driving a black and white.
Yeah.
And say, I'm sorry, but we have to run your background check. And sometimes because of names.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they go, no, we need to research the guy. So, well, should I take the gun away from him he's carrying now?
Yeah.
It's like, it is an imperfect system. Now, it does catch people on occasion that shouldn't have guns. And when we do catch them and the background people say no, it has no effect on whether he gets a gun or not, because he simply goes buy one from a private party, which this bill covers. Of course, criminals, when private party sales are covered, will quit buying guns from private parties because it's against the law. Right? Wrong.
Yeah, they're going to,
Anyway.
and most guys, and I'm telling you folks, most real criminals, okay, or people who shouldn't have a gun are going to buy them stolen from some other scumbag on the street. End of story.
Or steal them from you.
Or steal them from you. They're going to steal them, or they're going to buy a stolen gun. It's not going to be, well, gee, I walked into the gun store and I got turned down, so I'm going to go on one of the internet sites, and of course, everybody these politicians see these internet sites like Gunbroker and Auction Arms and those kind of places, and they go, oh my God, you can buy those guns over the internet. They don't ship them to you. They go to a dealer. If it's a private sale, you've got to meet that person. I don't like to do private sales to anybody that I don't personally know. And if it's somebody that is a friend of a friend, I want to make sure that they're all squared away. I always ask them for their driver's license. I ask them if they have a CCW. If they have a CCW, then they are more than likely not a criminal at that point. Even in the state of Nevada, if you have something like a DUI, they can the issuing authority will pull your CCW very quickly, so you won't have that. So in those situations, but this goes back to Bob's my friend for close to 30 years. Bob has a personally owned gun. He wants to sell it to me. Bob has to take it either through his books as a dealer or to another dealer. Then I have to go in and I have to pay for the background check, and he has to pay the other dealer or eat the time to put it on the books. It's a worthless piece of legislation, and I just personally I hope everybody votes no against it.
The NRA will have actually a table out here. We found out today on Saturday while we're open, roughly 10 to 6, with information on this bill. You can sign petitions for it, and they'll do voter registration, so you can all vote when this comes up, and then you can vote for or against the people who put you through the background check. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of erroneous information. The wording of the bill has not been set yet. They're still arguing over the people to write the thing for it and the thing against it. So you have two things to read in the ballot. They've ruled that some of them were misleading and have to be rewritten and so forth. So we don't know what the wording of the bill is going to be. I don't even know if what I heard on television yesterday morning from Sheriff Joe Lombardo is possibly going to be true, because he said if you get a background check when you go to a dealer, when he was asked about that. But he said right now, if you're buying and selling with a private party, you and the private party can go to a gun dealer and they'll run the background check for you for the $25 fee that the state charges. And we're not allowed to actually do that. We're not allowed to run background checks for outside parties, because we have to run it on a gun that we have on our inventory, because we have to account for the gun. When we call it in, we have to have the gun serial number and type and make on there. And if we're not selling it, we're not allowed to do that by ATF regs. Maybe that's one of the things they're going to change in the bill, and Joe just has more knowledge of it than I do. Nice guy. I voted for him. But he doesn't run his own gun registration department or gun background check department. So that's in the minutia. Maybe they're changing that. Speaking of in the minutia and buying guns online, the story and unstory of the day. This is from the Associated Press and everybody else in the media everywhere. Today in Sarasota, Florida, the pistol former neighborhood watch volunteer George Zimmerman used in the fatal shooting of Trayvon Martin is up for auction online. It's actually not, but it was when I wrote this. In an interview in the Orlando, Florida station WOFL, Zimmerman said he had just gotten the pistol back from the U.S. Department of Justice, which took it as evidence during the trials, which they did. They keep the evidence in case whatever. So when the federal charges started, they went over and snatched the gun back from him and kept it. He said he's selling the gun because it's time to move past the firearm. The auction listing on GunBroker lists the gun as a 9mm Kel-Tec PF9 pistol. The auction begins Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time, with bidding start at $5,000. Zimmerman said he was defending himself when he shot and killed Martin, an unarmed black 17-year-old. The shooting sparked protests nationwide, as we all know, and a national debate about race relations. And this supposedly went on auction at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I was going to do a follow-up on it on the show when Lenny got here just before the show. I said that I'm trying to look it up on the auction to see where the bids are and what happened, and was informed that it went off auction at 11:05.
Very quickly, the website gunbroker.com, which is a very reputable firearms site, put it up online, and then as soon as this story broke, I think someone, the powers to be at GunBroker, felt that there was going to be a lot of backlash potentially because they were selling this gun. Although this gun is legally owned by him, it is legal for him to sell it. My personal opinion is, if George Zimmerman wants to sell that pistol, it's his right to do so. Everybody is still trying to cover him as the man was tried for murder and acquitted. He's innocent. He cannot be tried for murder. He's innocent. And at the end of the day, these people are still trying to make something out of this. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. This is that pressure these sites, and I don't know if the management at Gunbroker decided to do it or if they got calls or whatever. They took it down from their site. That's their right to do so. I have no problem with that. I hope, personally, I hope George Zimmerman sells that thing for $10 million just to upset the people who would deny him his right to do so.
And they did sell the Jack Ruby's gun.
Yeah.
Shot Lee Howard. It didn't sell for $10 million. Sold for way under that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That really was a historically significant gun. This is not historically significant, in my opinion. This is politically significant, or Black Lives Matter significant, or you see the website somebody's got up called Black Guns Matter?
You mentioned
I
that
saw
today,
that
yeah.
today. It's a joke, but that was kind of cute. Nice play on words. Anyway, comments or questions, bob@firedupmail.com, and please do friend us on Facebook. That one's there. And I always talk a bit about California law. We have lots and lots of listeners in California, our state to our left. The Firearms Policy Coalition has reported on the proposed initiative. They're having a ballot initiative like we do for background checks in our state. They're having an initiative to toughen gun control laws in California. It's being run by the Lieutenant Governor, Gavin Newsom, who is slated to be the governor. He's going to be the candidate because Governor Moonbeam can't run again, apparently, or he doesn't want to. But anyway, they submitted all their signatures to Secretary of State's office a week ago Friday and qualified all their measures for the ballot. They didn't need, they were way over the number of signatures they needed. The measure is co-authored by the San Francisco-based Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence, which tells you which side they're on. And it's especially focused on ammunition regulations. Apparently, they've decided it's easier to outlaw ammunition than outlaw guns, but it covers several things. And again, it's an initiative. It's going to be bounced around the legislature and changed here and there. But it will ban possession of all high-capacity ammunition magazines, including the ones that you in California thought were grandfathered. They're going to be ungrandfathered. Now, there's some deal in their wording. They may decide that you can register your high-capacity magazines, engrave your name on them, a serial number, and so forth. And those you can keep till you die, but they cannot be transferred. You can't give them to your heirs and so forth and so on. Because God knows, if you give a 20-shot magazine to your grandson when you die, crime is going to go through the roof in
Absolutely.
California. This is such crap. But anyway, they're either going to outlaw them completely, so they're going to go pick them up. I doubt that, but they're trying it. That'd be hard to get through even in California. But they'll do point-of-sale background checks for ammunition. In other words, you go in to buy a box of ammunition. The current wording in the bill is 50 rounds or more than 50 rounds. So you can buy a box of 22s. You buy 2 boxes of 22s, or a box of 22s and a box of 38s. So you're more than 50 rounds. You do a background check through the state system in California and fill out a form like you do for buying a gun. And they run your background check every time you buy ammunition. And there's a requirement for gun owners to notify law enforcement if their firearm is lost or stolen within 24 hours or 48 hours, I think it is. That would seem to be a non-issue, except the gun that you think you have under your bed or in the back of your safe in your house that you haven't seen in 3 years because you haven't looked for it. It was stolen 2 years ago. And you didn't report it. And if you're in California, it's a crime. So you got to go check. I don't know how they're going to get rid of that, that if you don't look. And I wonder how it affects police departments. They lose guns all the time.
They lose
you have
guns
a
all the
ball
time.
full of guns and one's been missing for 2
Well,
years.
usually you got to report on that in less than 24 hours.
They inventory them every day.
It's a knee jerk. still from the San Bernardino shooting.
Mhm.
Is exactly what this is, because those two terrorists, and they were terrorists, they used 30-round magazines in their AR-15s. Of course, they violated the law by getting the guns because they did a straw man purchase, number one, so they were already felons. They violated the law again because California has what they call a bullet button, which prohibits the gun using, like an AR-15, using the magazine release with your finger as it was designed. You have to take some small object, poke it in the middle of the button, and the magazine will drop out. That they violated that law, so they're completely, they don't care, and this isn't going to stop anybody. This isn't going to stop gang violence. This isn't going to stop criminality. This isn't going to stop anybody from doing this, except this is going to make a bunch of gun owners in the state of California who are going to be potentially felons, because people are going to say, screw you, I've got my magazines, and if something's going to happen someday and the police are going to come to your house and they're going to see those magazines, and you're going to be probably looking at a felony charge in the state of California.
You could tell the police they were stolen. Like every once in a while, a drug dealer calls and says, somebody stole my marijuana.
Yeah.
Cops.
Yeah. I mean, it's a ridiculous piece of legislation, but it is the People's Republic of California. And
and I know those of you that are listening to this see the way around it right now is you just drive up here to Nevada and buy a case of ammo at the gun show. Like you buy high capacity magazines or standard capacity magazines at the gun shows now. They covered that. The same law like they have with magazines, you're not allowed to import them into California, will now be ammunition. So when they have this set up that they know you can't buy more than 50 rounds, it also makes it unlawful to import ammunition into California unless you are a wholesaler, distributor, dealer that's registered with the state government. So you come up to Nevada to buy the ammo. Probably you'll still be able to buy it, but it will be a crime to import it.
And let me tell you, I can guarantee you with 100% certainty, if that law passes in California, at the check stations on Baker and an I-40 and an I-80 and going into California where they check to see you, make sure you don't have any fruit, there will be dogs there that will sniff your car, or they will have some sort of high-speed sniffer to detect gunpowder. And you will, it'll be just like going into a foreign country.
We are running out of the end of our time here. Some ending notes. Las Vegas Gun Show, July 16 and 17 at the Sports Center up here on Sunset, just nearby the Strip. We will be there with Fired Up and selling our brass and whatnot. I'll be back next Tuesday from 5 to 6 right here on 1400 AM radio and on YouTube. Guest next week is Attorney Bill Gamage, a lawyer here who works defense cases in criminal law and does some general law. And Bill and I instructed academies together back when he was a firearms instructor. He's ex-law enforcement, having been an agent with gaming control for years and years here before going to law school. So he's a great guest to have on because he sees these from all issues. If you need a defense lawyer for gun crime, he's your guy because he knows what really happens. Thanks for listening to KSHP 1400 and watching us on YouTube. Remember, questions and comments can go to Bob at Fired Up Mail, and please friend us on Facebook. They're now carrying some of my stuff on AmmoLand. That's the one. I'm writing a column for them now. So you can find some of these stories on AmmoLand. Thanks, Lenny.
You're welcome.
Thanks for watching.